The cultural dimension is a very important layer in the human experience throughout our roughly 10,000 different languages and species over the last 10, 20,000 years. Culture is the web of ritual, of belief, of human connection with, it's through tradition to a certain part of the brain that is not accessed except through ritual. So, first of all, when we ignore the cultural dimension, as so many businesses and homes and cities and locations do today, we lose half of our connection with the people in those environments. In the absence of a culture for a hotel, for a home, for a relationship, people create individual cultures with their video games, with their chatting and text that are just as bonding and rich, and yet also lack the presence, the cohesiveness of human touch, human contact, human presence. So this creates an amazing opportunity in the larger cycle of things. We've gone from deeply culturally enmeshed traditional tribal lives in this rupturing process of slowly separating and becoming more and more distinct and separate, to where there's no tradition, there's no belief, there's no religion. It's this completely clean, modern, crisp, vacuous space. And this has created an opportunity for new thought, for evaluation, for objectivity. This dissociation provides a beautiful level of objectivity. In its extreme, however, many of us feel this whole part of the brain that is connected on an instinctive and intuitive and bonded level is just not there. And it's unsettling, it's lonely, and it's also in some ways empty of meaning and boring. So this creates an opportunity for a conscious creation of layers of culture in a variety of settings. Cities, resorts and hotels, homes, neighborhoods, and individual relationships can consciously develop and evolve a cultural dimension. This can come from a mixture of past tradition, of parallel tradition, meaning this was not our tradition, but to give you an example, when I was in Cebu at the Crimson Resort on Lapu-Lapu in the Philippines, every staff member touched their heart and did a slight bow to me in a way that was very conscious. And it became part of the ritual of the interaction. It reminded me of my heart. It reminded me of presence. It reminded me of the opportunity to honor and connect. And as a result, it became the single most enjoyable aspect of the resort. Now, here's what I want you to dwell on for a moment. The human experience is an equal mix of heart, mind, and body. The most powerful synergy of human experience is released when a symmetry of heart, mind, and body are in balance. Here's what I mean. If you go to the most gorgeous and elaborate modern dentist, where the whole rooms are just magnificently decorated with lighting and it's an exquisite architectural experience, and that dentist neglects to use painkiller, do you tune out the pain and enjoy the beautiful aesthetic? Or do you forget about, fuck the aesthetic, this is miserable? There's a way that in the human condition, if we've got a foul smell, a beautiful piece of art, and nice music, the brain goes right to that foul smell. In other words, the lowest common denominator of that experience reduces the whole thing down in a way that it kind of wastes. It's inefficient in producing the optimum human experience. So what this means is that anytime the aesthetic of the architecture significantly exceeds the smell, the feeling, the cultural feeling, the thoughts, the feelings that are evoked in the place, it's wasted. Now here's the really funny thing. So going back to the Crimson, how much money do you think it cost the hotel to train every new staff to bow and touch their heart as a way of honoring the guests? What's your guess about how much money this cost? Could it even be that happier guests who are in touch with their feelings, argued less with their spouses, had better vacations and wanted to come back, that employees trained to teach guests with reverence also treated each other with more respect and thus had less friction in the staff? Could it be that this small gesture actually saved the hotel money, made the hotel money, and cost virtually nothing to train? Could that be? Or could it be that it cost, labor is really inexpensive in the Philippines, so let's say it cost $10,000 a year to train and imbue this particular culture. Now, keep in mind, it has doubled my guest experience. The resort is magnificent. The food is wonderful. The staff is gorgeous, beautiful, and it's a sensational place, costing roughly $20 million to create this ambiance. And yet, this gesture has doubled my experience. In other words, it's worth $20 million, because without it, it'd be fine. It's another resort. But the effect and the ripple effect, and this is what I'm pointing to, because it's really key to understand, how do we get to be so blind? How is it that a smart, hard-nosed hawk of an investor would choose rationally, in their mind, to upgrade a restaurant at a cost of $1 million, instead of adding a courtesy or a gesture that would double the guest's human experience in that hotel or in that restaurant at no cost, or at a cost of $1,000 rather than $1 million, or $10,000 rather than $1 million. How is it that this blind spot exists? It's the same blind spot in schools. Buildings are funded, teachers are not. Architecture is funded, emotions are not. Renovations are done, upgrades in courtesy and hospitality are often neglected. Or the eyes are blessed with this cornucopia of beauty, but the nose is left with, nothing. There's nothing sizzling about the scent, or the tastes are lackluster, and there's no touch. There's no sensation of a cool towel with lemongrass or something that balances the whole experience. Because that brings me to the next thing, that at the same resort where I'm being bowed to and honored to a point where I love doing it myself. It's my favorite thing to do back to the staff, because here they're honoring me, and it feels wonderful. So let's take a moment to acknowledge, to receive, to touch my heart and thank them for their presence. But the same hotel also has this welcome experience at one of the most beautiful rock bars in the world that I've seen. It's just amazing. Anyway, I sit down. There's a wooden disc that's given to me with an exotic welcome drink and a chilled lemongrass towelette. So that within the first few moments of arriving, I've not just been bowed to, but my face is clean, my skin is alive with sensation, my body is starting to be rehydrated. It's beautiful. It costs almost nothing. And I go back just for that experience. It's like, I'm not that hungry, but let's go order something and have a welcome, have that honoring ritual. So these things cost very little to almost nothing. They can double the human experience, creating loyalty, excitement, joy, novelty. They are almost always free or inexpensive to produce, but they require a change in thinking. A change in thinking that says 1/3, at least, of the value that we provide as a city, as a location, as a neighborhood, as a space, is the human and cultural experience of learning, of sensation, of engaging in a way that is ritualized and unique to this environment. 1/3 of the value and the human experience we can create is in this arena, and the design of this cultural dimension, the design of this sphere, is as important as the design of the bed, of the walkways, of the streets, of the lighting. It's as important. And we as human beings deserve the full synergy of our human experience, thoughts, emotions, sensations, balanced. So we've got several opportunities within here. The first is just within the physical dimension itself to pay more attention to the entire senses. to be aware that we are sight, sound, touch, and smell. And so it's not okay to have nail varnish leaching out into a mall and polluting the ambiance with chemical residue that's toxic and distracting. It's not okay to focus on these beautiful colonnades and architecture, but not manage the sound quality so that what we're hearing is a chaotic din that is mildly painful. It's not okay that the scents and tastes, and that there's no touch, there's no way to engage in this environment, that everything's flat. There's no refreshing movements of temperature or moisture or anything. This whole human physical experience can be honored. But the second thing is, I'm staying here at my favorite hotel, the Pan Pacific. And one of my highlights is the ritual of the breakfast. I call up, can you have my normal breakfast ready in the dome, which is out in the garden? They call me when it's ready. It's a certain amount of ritual and routine for the day. I'm out in nature, but there's a couple of turtles in the water feature. And these turtles touch my heart. I love these turtles. And it's fun to go find them. It's fun to see what they're up to. It's fun. I've learned these turtles love to drink espresso. So I'll take a swig of espresso and jet it out in their direction in the water, and they'll swim over, and they just love espresso. So this is an example of a little ritual that I've created for myself that adds 30% of value to the breakfast. But what's really exciting is to find locations where this side of ritual has been prepared for, like an Easter egg hunt. And I was at a dive center recently where I'd been diving there for a few years off and on, snorkeling, and I've seen it all. And they've got a garbage problem. Bottles and cans and waste, scrap metal and concrete, they just keep piling up. And it's on an island, and there's not much to do with it. And what I suggested was create an underwater sculpture gallery with 2 dimensions. 1 is sculpture, 3 is use of recycled, 1 is 3 dimension. Sculpture, reuse of recycled materials. The other is an information treasure hunt. So that rather than just diving at any old reef, animals start to grow on these sculptures, but also you can gather data in a quiz so that you can fill out the quiz and win a prize, but that the quiz is knowledgeable, so that you're gaining knowledge, you're engaging in a game, you're having a competition, you're exploring sculpture, you're exploring all areas of the dive site, and creating this sculpture and building this dimension, this educational dimension, uses garbage and might cost, maybe $1,500 to pay the staff who are often just sitting waiting for guests to construct this and then sink it out in their boats. But imagine how much more fun it is to explore this cultural element as well as the natural beauty. Now, I'm not talking about destroying natural reef. This is a typhoon-prone area, so there's numbers of dead, bare, sand where these can be placed and integrated and actually become part of the habitat. So this is something that can solve a garbage problem. can increase dive revenues, can create uniqueness, can create a reason to book on the website, can create an artistic element and expression for the staff, and can double the joy of diving. And if it's moved around or added a little bit, guests who come back can go in and see the latest sculpture. If one sculpture is added every 6 months, and see where that is and what the fact is on that sculpture. And so this is an area that, to rational, unbiased eyes, explodes with potential, value, high upside, low downside. But it is an area obscured by the paradigm of vacancy, of no culture, of individuality, of a lack of engagement. And this is what I want to challenge. Lift the chauvinism that say that feelings don't count, that say that the human experience, which is 2/3 mental, emotional, and 1/3 physical, that the human experience matters as much as the dogma of reality. I say the dogma because everyone knows, everyone knows reality is 30% feelings, 30% emotions, 30% body. That is who we are. But the dogma that what we see is real, what we don't see isn't. There's a loyalty to this. And even, so this is something we need to break down in order to capitalize on this enormous opportunity in communities, homes, hotels, cities, destinations. And you can, I just want to summarize this by kind of going back to, for example, Orlando, which has become a theme park destination. I've been there 5 times. I never would have gone without Disney World. And so by creating something that's distinct, unique, engaging, curious, and touching of the whole human experience, we actually create an enormous amount of wealth, well-being, fun, identity, and we deserve that.